What's good and welcome in. This is Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. Coming your way on today's show, I kind of got in the shoes of Daryl Morey and put together 4 ideal moves that I want the Sixers to make before NBA training camp gets underway in September. So without further ado, let's start breaking it down. Move number 1, you have to figure out backup center. I think this is a really underrated position on the Sixers roster considering what they've lacked, especially come playoff time and when Joel Embiid has been out, whether it be in the regular season or the playoffs. You need to bulk up that center spot. I like the future of Paul Reed as that energetic guy coming in off the bench, but I still believe you need another center in that front court. Here are the top centers available still in NBA free agency. The list is a little bit thin, but some solid players who can give you, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes per night. DeMarcus Cousins, if you want more offense. LaMarcus Aldridge, that sweet mid-range J. Doesn't really offer you much defensively, but is about average or above average. Dwight Howard, I thought he was actually pretty solid 2 years ago, backing up Embiid, and I think he still has some gas left in the tank. I'm good on Hassan Whiteside. Enes Kanter Freedom, I think he's out of the league more so because of what's going down politically, but I actually think he's a solid backup center. I wouldn't hate going that route, but I do think there are better options out there. As for my dream scenario, it's finding a way to bring in Nerlens Noel, who was traded by the New York Knicks to the Detroit Pistons on that draft night trade in order for New York to clear up some money to, in the future, sign Jalen Brunson. He might get let go, bought out, or just released by Detroit if they want to move forward with that youth movement. And if he's available, whether it be in free agency or via trade, Nerlens Noel would by far and away be the best backup center that we've seen behind Joel Embiid in his prime. You look at the numbers 2 years ago, because last year it was an injury-plagued season for the top lottery pick from a few years ago from Sam Hinkie. 5 points per game, 6.5 boards, a steal per game, as that length allows him to really play the passing lanes really well, and 2 blocks per game. 2 blocks per game, considering the minutes that he was playing, that is elite level protection. And look, nowadays in the NBA, you need switchable defenders who can play in a playoff series. And I think Nerlens Noel would be able to do that. A great backup center for Joel Embiid. He kind of teased a reunion, if you remember, on the social media streets 2 off seasons ago. And going back to that switching ability, him being able to play in the playoffs. I think the modern day prototype for bigs who can't shoot, kind of like what Robert Williams has brought to the Boston Celtics. Nerlens Noel, he's not as young or as good as Robert Williams, but he's kind of like that guy. And in a playoff series, when teams are trying to burn you on switches, you can burn a DeAndre Jordan who just gets put in a turnstile and gets blown by, or you go with Nerlens Noel, who has the athleticism to get out to wings on the three-point arc. He's long enough to not allow them to drive past, and he's also springy too, providing the Sixers with what would be very good rim protection. So, your feelings on a reunion with Nerlens Noel. City of brotherly love, my home. Let me know in the comment section. I for in, O for out. I'm all in on Nerlens Noel, especially if he is able to hit free agency. Move number 2, trade for Eric Gordon. Now, we're operating under the premise that this would be a trade, and you'd probably have to give away Matisse Thybulle. And you're trying to weigh letting go of a young player who in his first 3 years has made the All-NBA defensive team twice, with going after a guy who's a little bit older, somewhat injury-prone, but is coming off one of his best three-point shooting seasons and has had success playing alongside James Harden. Last year, the healthiest that Eric Gordon has been in a little while. You see the numbers here on your screen. 2018-19, 68 games played. The year after that, only 36 games played. 2020, 2021, 27 games played. And last year, he was pretty solid. 13 points per game, 41% from 3, a little less than 48% from the field. Those are really solid numbers. And the thought in giving up Thybulle, it would hurt. He's a young player who can be cost-controlled up to this point. No extension talks just yet. But he has to improve his value and prove that he can hit a three-pointer. But does he help you this year? I'm not sure if he'd be able to help you as much as Eric Gordon. And with Joel Embiid getting a little bit older, we know that he's injury-prone. Got to maximize this title window. And when it comes down to Thybulle, you got the Anthony Melton good defender. PJ Tucker, as well as Daniel House. So does it make sense to keep Thibault if you can bring in Eric Gordon, a valuable offensive player, underrated defensive player, by giving away Thibault? Something certainly to consider. We have a nice little battle going down here inside the walls of Chat Sports. I'll tell you this. My boy Marshall Green has done a great job at New York Knicks now, and their free agency and offseason period, it's been so much more busy as compared to Philadelphia because they're a bad basketball team and the Sixers are one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference and maybe across the entire NBA. So because of that, Marshall's been able to capitalize with all these Knicks storylines and just take over Philadelphia 76ers now in terms of subscribers, You see the numbers right here. Philly, show up, show out, represent, show some passion. Subscribe to the channel if you want the best Sixers coverage on YouTube. Let's overtake once more New York Knicks now because a couple weeks ago, it was Philadelphia who had the edge, and there's no question, Philadelphia, the better city than New York. Move number 3, get James Harden in peak shape. Now, I thought what he said in that exclusive interview with Chris Haynes was pretty interesting. He did say that my body feels good right now, and he wasn't right last year. Now, is this just a front for him to get solid money, to get the pressure off of him? Maybe, but he certainly didn't look right last year and did lack that step. And he's been partying a little bit throughout this offseason as he normally does, but who cares, right? If he comes into camp in shape, unlike what he's done the last 2 years, then I'll be very, very happy. As for what Harden had to say about his conditioning level, I wasn't right last year. Still almost averaged a triple-double. If anybody else had those numbers, we'd be talking about them getting the max. He took a $15 million pay cut. People were used to seeing me average 40, 30 points, and so they viewed it as a down year. But I was in Philadelphia for a couple of months. I had to learn on the fly. That's just what it is. I'm in a good space physically and mentally right now, and I'm just looking forward to next year. Now, is this best shape of life season, or is James Harden for real that his body feels good and he feels good mentally? It's weird that he couldn't figure out that hamstring injury over the last couple of years, and it certainly lingered and impacted his game. And if this is the Harden that we're going to get, then some concerns. Now, he does have that player option on the back end of that 2-year deal that he signed, but there was a little bit of a gap between his regular season numbers last year as well as the playoffs. But if the shooting efficiency improves with these regular season numbers here to the left, and he's able to give the Sixers, with Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, PJ Tucker, and Anthony Melton, 22, 10, and nearly 8, but he shoots around 45% from the field, and let's say, 35 to 37% with volume from 3, those will be pretty solid numbers. Now, in Game 5, at home at the Wells Fargo Center against the Heat in the second round, he was great. But other than that, was kind of a no-show in that series against Miami. He has to be more accountable. He has to show up come playoff time, which at points throughout his career, he has disappeared. Most importantly, though, has to get in better shape. Predict Harden's stat line for this upcoming season in the comment section, considering what you saw last year, what he said, the money that he's making, and the other pieces on this team. Get creative with it in the comment section. Lastly, James Harden is your starting point guard. Tyrese Maxey, when Harden is off the floor, can handle point guard responsibilities. Who else is going to run point, though? Is it going to be Furkan Korkmaz? Shake Milton? I think the Sixers should try to find a better backup point guard who handles the rock. Top free agent point guards available right now. Dennis Schroeder. Campazzo is a nice little shifty guard. Ryan Arcidiacono, a lot of people know about him as he played at Villanova, starred and won some championships. Elfrid Payton, nice little distributor of the basketball, and a guy who kind of surprised me throughout the NBA Summer League is Mac McClung. Good athlete, a little bit undersized, but has the athleticism to finish around the rim. Had a couple of games with the Warriors in Summer League play where he displayed that vision and passing ability. So those right there, some top guards available who I think would be able to move the needle and fit in a nice role with Philadelphia. Most importantly, though, they would be cheap options on the free agency market. With that, I ask you this before we hop on out of here on 76ers Now. Name a free agent you want the Sixers to sign, and if you think they have a need outside of what I talked about, let me know and hold me accountable.